Oh, I'm on the wrong side. I have to flip myself over. 1, 2, 3, go to the other side and flip. Right on. Richard Carlton here. Welcome to fmtraining.tv, where we create, and my team creates, we create awesome training videos here every day at 1 o'clock. On-demand videos that are part of our video courses. But once again, the 1 o'clock is live stream, so it's a little bit more free-flowing with questions and answers from people like yourself. I want to welcome Jesse Barnum, who's going to be here. We'll get to him briefly here in a second. He's our guest speaker today. He's been refactoring the demo today, so I wanted to make sure that it was going to work good for us, and I think we're in great shape. I want to welcome TK55678, obviously Robert from Texas, FM Bob, Spectre 207, we got Carol, we got One Brudderman, we got Dave 1, Dave 2, Gadidi, Ken, Bunny, Nick, Lean Nick, Super Lean Nick, Jacob Taylor, of course, always on hot standby, he's an awesome guy, Scott Taylor, man, we got a lot of people here, right? And a couple people from 360 Works as well. So real quick, welcome to day 3 of FileMaker and the Enterprise. What is FileMaker and the Enterprise? We're going to cover that here just shortly. But the Enterprise is deploying FileMaker in a very large, scalable way beyond several hundred people. We're talking beyond 400 or 500 people. We're talking big groups of people. FileMaker will do it. In order to make it work, you need a little bit of a helping hand from some third parties. In the case of this demo, it's RCC, our product, our CRM product, which is free, as well as Jesse Barnum's Mirrorsync product from 360 Works. So this is our guest speaker here today. I'm going to run briefly through our slideshow if I can make it work. There we go. So the broadcast today is brought to you by fmtraining.tv, where we create great on-demand FileMaker training at an affordable low price. Visit fmtraining.tv for great deals. Now, additionally, at fmtraining.tv, you can see our live schedule, which is what you see right over here. If you press the live button, you can see the upcoming 6 days of broadcast. We generally don't broadcast on Saturdays and Sundays, although that does randomly happen if we have a lot to say, right? Or if we have some really amazing content. So, but generally Monday through Friday at this time slot, we have Jesse Barnum today, tomorrow, and also, surprisingly enough, he is, I told him that we were going to talk about basically really an open question and answer session on Friday, and that he didn't have to be here. And then when people asked hard questions, I would just make it up, right? About, Mirrorsync, right? Because it's really his product, and I'm happy just to, lie and tell fairy tales about the product if he's not here. So then he decided that maybe it was better if he showed up on Friday. So that's awesome. We're welcoming him back for one extra day. We are streaming live in 1080. So YouTube, Twitch, and Discord. Once again, we are broadcasting at 1080 resolution, and then it is recorded. And during the day or two that comes after the immediate recording, we kind of clean it up a little bit, and then those are the videos that you see. So if you're looking for the first day, it's already on YouTube right now. If you go to YouTube and you type in FileMaker Training, one word, you'll find our channel. At the bottom of the channel, you'll see day 1. Day 2 is being edited right now, and then we are currently on day 3 at the moment. I do get emails from people in the middle of broadcast going, "Where's the recording at?" And I'm like, dude, we're still making the recording. It's like still happening. We haven't released it yet. I do get those. It's kind of funny. So if you go to fmtraining.tv and you want to help us support this channel, because it's not free, just the cost of this week's worth of demos is just in licensing fees with Amazon about $1,000, because we legitimately set up high performance servers that can handle. We could right now deploy this CRM pretty easily to about 3,000 people in real time, pretty easily. And so we're going to kind of be showing a little bit more of that today. And then tomorrow is the where we invite everyone in, and you can come in and play with the data. And you can add a record in Australia, and it will show up in California or in Europe or in India. It's just awesome. So if you want to come to our website and buy one of the bundles, this is how you support the channel. We have the FileMaker training with the special version of the CRM for basically $300. And then you have the, if you're looking for the video only version, you already have FileMaker. You don't need the CRM. You just want our video training, our on-demand training. You can get it for a lower price right there. So once again, fmtraining.tv, and then hit the bundles button. Additionally, we're heading towards DevCon, so it's time for our double deal, right? So like you go to In-N-Out Burger and you say you want an animal style or doggy style or whatever you want to get your hamburger that way. You're going to go to our website, bit.ly, right? And then FM double, and I can put that link in there. This allows you to get the two of those bundles, the complete bundles, for much cheaper, like $349. So instead of one of them being $299, you can get two of them for $350. So it's pretty good. Now, not to be outdone by anything that's happening here, Jesse, who is the captain of the Starship today, because we are doing the Enterprise, has a special deal. I want to encourage everyone to go to this. This is 15% off the Mirrorsync software. This is the stuff that makes syncing possible. If you need to sync offline with FileMaker Pro, right? You need to sync offline with on a laptop or on an iPad or on an iPhone, or instead of syncing between the server and a client, you actually sync between servers, which is kind of what we're talking about, right? This is the same product. It does both. Pretty awesome. So I want to encourage everyone to let me know about that. And then Jesse, if you could, before I get to you real quick, can you do me a favor and find that Claire's community idea you had where you were requesting a supported upvote, because Scott Henderson reminded me of this, and we should let everyone know what the link is so they can hunt that down and help us out. Because right now, if you want to deploy this product, you need to use FileMaker Server. You can't use FileMaker Cloud 2 because there's kind of a critical bug in it, and Claris may or may not take that bug seriously. Claris only fixes bugs that people complain about. If you don't complain about it, they won't fix it. And so you have to complain. And literally what they do, and I've seen this, and it makes perfect sense. I do the same thing. If you have 50 bugs and you're going to fix half of them, then you total up the complaints on each one, and you do a little sub-summary report, and the 25 most complained about bugs get fixed. And so we want to make sure that this bug is up on the list pretty high, so they will take it seriously, because we want to be able to do synchronization even if people are using Cloud 2. So that's really a great thing. So hopefully we can find that and go down that road. So the next slide is kind of a new one. I'm going to bring this down right now, and I'm going to click here. I want you folks to watch this. This is kind of what we're talking about here. So this is the world, okay? If you can see all this, this is where in different geographical regions we have servers that are communicating and running. And then if one server drops off, the other ones can keep going, and the people that were down here accessing that server can connect to the next closest server and still be running, right? So that's the idea of this worldwide replication. Once the server comes back up online, it automatically reattaches and is updated with synchronization. So that's what we're talking about. Pretty awesome stuff. There's a question about, we'll save it towards the end. There is a question. Well, yeah, I'm just going to save it towards the end. I think this is one of the top, I recognize this name, J Few, right? He's an ETS guy. All right, Jesse, are you there? Are you ready to?
I am.
You are ready?
Did you get the URL that I sent you?
I will find it and send it out when you start talking to everyone.
Okay. What I
want to do up front is you have a question already from people. And the question is, I think this is from JFew, right, on ETS. If I had to guess, the name here is really close. He says, sorry if this is off topic, but can you quickly talk more about what Mirrorsync needs in order to connect to an SQL database? For example, if I want to connect a Microsoft SQL database with a FileMaker database, what privileges and accounts do you need to connect to the SQL database? Is this done by ODBC? I have found that DBAs in the enterprise can be very protective of their databases and don't like things connecting to it. Okay, well, I will just verify the last sentence. Yeah, DBAs in the world don't want anyone touching their database. So sometimes you have to get the CIO to put a gun to their head to get them to do it. So, but if you want to talk about the SQL Connect component, right?
Yeah, so you're going to need access on that port, through the firewall. In the case of Microsoft SQL Server, I believe it's 1433 port number. Not 100% positive about that. So you'll need that port open for your IP address. You will need a database level username and password. Now, how much access you need is entirely dependent on what you want to do. So if you want to set up a read-only sync where you're just pulling from that Microsoft SQL database and pushing to FileMaker. Maybe you have Microsoft SQL set up as a read-only read-only hub. FileMaker is like a writable spoke. Then all you need is read-only access credentials for that database. If you want to do a bidirectional sync, then obviously you are going to need permissions to insert, update, and delete records. You don't need permissions to do DDL, database description language, to modify the schema of the database. Although Mirrorsync does have some cool features to create new schema from a FileMaker database. So and I know this is not actually your question.
Well, if they weren't going to shit over connecting it, them not caring at all that you're just going to like start changing your schema. Yeah, never mind. This guy named Jesse Barnum, who you never heard of before, has got this app which will automatically on its own just start changing your schema, right?
There is a really cool feature in Mirrorsync. Let's just say, actually, this might be a valid thing. Let's just say that you want to just create a separate Microsoft SQL database, like not write to their real production database, but sync with some other database that they can talk to. Mirrorsync has a feature to create all the tables and fields in Microsoft SQL, Oracle, or MySQL from your FileMaker tables. So if you set FileMaker up as the hub, MySQL, Oracle, or Microsoft SQL Server as the spoke, and you have a fresh, empty database that the IT director, just says, we'll just let him play on this one database that's empty. Then Mirrorsync, at the end of the configuration process, it'll generate a long-ass SQL statement, and you can just hit execute SQL, and it creates all the tables and fields for you to match the FileMaker tables and fields. Now, that's obviously not what you would do if you were talking to an existing live production database, but it's very handy if you're starting from scratch on the SQL side.
All right, so hopefully that answers his question. And then there's a discussion. Someone is asking, where is New Zealand? Because it's not a real country. I don't know. I did not say that. It's like, where is this at? What's it doing here? And so New Zealand is like down. So this piece, or it's around here. It's around Australia somewhere, right? So anyway, so we are gonna be showing a server hopefully in Australia tomorrow. Hopefully in Sydney is close enough for your speed for that. Hopefully, yeah. So, and Lexi Folger is back. Oh my gosh, yeah. Lexi says, I love the drop table feature, right? Bammo, right? Oh yeah, never mind. Yeah, I just favorite feature. Okay, so we're going to transfer command. So I'm going to be playing air traffic control, everyone, and I'm trying to watch for Alexi when she says, oh, by the way, I had a question. So Jesse, why don't we transfer command to you?
All right.
You're going to share your screen, maybe. See if I can bring it up, and tell us what are we doing today?
So if you're seeing my screen right now, what you'll notice is the list of configurations is blank. The last 2 days when I've been showing this, I've started with already configured FileMaker starting point. And so what I wanted to do today was just to show you what it would look like if you were setting this up maybe in your own solution, because the enterprise edition of FileMaker starting point comes with Mirrorsync already set up. We've already done all of the copy and paste operations and added the tables and all that kind of stuff and the layouts. And so if you're using the enterprise edition of FileMaker starting point, there's hardly anything to do to make it work with Mirrorsync. One important tip is that if you name your, we've assumed when we did our kind of pre-set up for FileMaker starting point, the name of the configuration would be FMSP. So if you name your configuration FMSP, then it will save you one step of not having to rename the script in FileMaker, because the script has the name of the configuration in it. So you can name it whatever you want, but if you name it FMSP, it's one less step. So I wanted to show today, and Richard wanted me to show, what if you're dealing with some other solution that is your own custom solution that isn't already pre-set up for Mirrorsync? What does that process look like? What is the configuration, walkthrough look like?
Yeah. The question is, what if you're unfortunate enough not to be having a latest copy of FM starting point, and you're stuck with some other get there? We want you to be successful, even if you choose that you don't want to use starting point, which is fine. That's fine. I won't take offense. It's okay.
So that's what I'm doing today. I've actually gone into my enterprise edition of FileMaker Starting Point, and I've deleted the tables, layouts, and scripts that go with Mirrorsync, so I could show you what it looks like if I was setting this up for the first time. I am cheating a tiny bit. There's one thing that I'm not deleting because it's just tedious to create, which is a bunch of blank layouts. If I go into my Manage Layouts, I have a whole bunch of layouts here, and all of these are blank. If I show you what they look like, they're very boring, and they look like this. So this is just a layout. What matters in this layout, what's important, is the table that it's based on, T19 tasks. So now Mirrorsync, whenever it needs to do something on the tasks table, it will switch to this layout. It'll, insert, delete, update, do set field operations. Doesn't need to have fields on it. It just needs to have a context that it can operate from, so that it can, because FileMaker scripts are all based on layouts. So I'm not going to bore you by creating 25 blank layouts. So that part's already done right here. So with that said, everything else is pretty much standard. You've got, if I look at my field definitions, I'll just pick a random table here. Let's pick something with some less fields on it. How about terms, QBO terms. So you can see we've got a creation timestamp, a modification timestamp, created by, modified by, primary key. All extremely standard stuff that probably every one of your solutions has these things. Then we've got our actual fields, term name and term ID. Richard could probably tell us what these fields mean. I don't actually know myself.
Well, that's the QuickBook integration stuff, right? If you want to play with some QuickBooks integration stuff, so yeah.
Okay. And then there is one thing that we've done that is not truly Mirrorsync specific. You might want to do this on your own anyway, but it is helpful for Mirrorsync, and I'll talk more later in the demo about why it's important. But Jonathan from Richard Carlton Consulting and I work together to add this field to every table. And I'll talk more later about when it's necessary. But basically what this field is it is the one field. I happened to pick the one table where that wasn't set correctly. So basically, if you want to, this is just a regular FileMaker Calc Formula, and I'm sure some of you can read this and immediately figure out what it does. But for those who are not as advanced, what this is basically doing is saying, this modification timestamp field, we don't actually use it in the calc at all. It's not used. We don't care what it is. The important thing is that the way a case statement works, or actually any FileMaker function that references a field, is that FileMaker function will trigger anytime any one of the fields it references changes. So we don't care what the value is on modification timestamp, but what we do care about is that anytime the modification timestamp changes, this calculation updates itself. And it will update itself with whatever we put here, which is get current host timestamp. So what this will do is that, so I am in Eastern time. For me right now it's 4:21 p.m. The server is in West Coast time. So on the server it's 1:21 p.m. And so I'll actually demo this right now. I can move Richard out of the way.
Yeah, I'm in the way. Yeah, sorry about that.
And I am, by the way, connected remotely to the server from Atlanta to San Francisco. So if it's a little bit laggy, that's why. So I'm going to, what was that? Was the QuickBooks terms table. Oh, we're not even syncing that table. I picked one that's not one that we decided we didn't have to sync. Let me find another one. Okay, let's do categories. So we've got our modification timestamp host. Let's make sure this one is not messed up. Wow. Okay, I'll need to make a note to myself because I might have missed something on my. Where is our modification?
Yeah, that's fine. Keep going on that, Jesse. So for those of you who are not super ninja level developers, we spent an entire session with Nick Hunter banging on auto enter calculations and all the magic that can happen there. So if you're interested in that, We will maybe TK or something, we can find the link for that, but it's a live stream that we did, and we tore that all apart. So yeah, so the auto enter calcs are kind of universally useful. So are you good now? Almost good?
This one is good, yes. So we're going to do email forms. So
Okay,
email
great.
forms has a date modified timestamp, which is just your plain old timestamp that everybody's used to seeing, modification timestamp. And then we also have a modification timestamp host. And that's this calculated value. And if this date modified timestamp changes, then we will insert the timestamp on the host on the server. So I will demonstrate that. I didn't make any changes, so I can just cancel. So I'm going to go to the email forms layout. There it is. And I'm just going to temporarily drag these some fields out just so you can see what I'm doing here. So here's my date modified timestamp, which is back in May. And then here's my modification timestamp host, which is blank because no changes have been made. And I am just going to do something here. I'm just going to stick over here. So this is the part I want you to notice. The modified timestamp is 424, which is my time. The 124 is the server time. And it's actually funny, the server and I happen to be accurate to the second from each other. I was expecting this to be a few seconds off. But I'm actually the exact same second as the server. It doesn't matter if these fields are on the layout or not. I'm just going to delete them so nobody thinks that they need to be on there for any reason. I just wanted to show you how that works. And later, when I'm running the initial sync, I'll have a minute or so of downtime, and I'm going to explain more about whether you actually need to do that or not in your solution. So getting back, so let's go ahead and set up. So that's, before I start, let's just recap what has actually been done in this solution so far. Every table has a primary key, which is a UUID in this Enterprise Edition. I've got my sync layouts, which are all blank. I've got a modification timestamp, a creation timestamp, and for this particular solution, I went ahead and created a host modification timestamp as well. Other than that, this is just a, probably very similar to everybody on this call kind of solution. So let's see what's involved in adding Mirrorsync integration to this. I'm going to create a new configuration. And I do want to talk about this for a second before I skim past it. So this first radio button is what you would pick if you wanted to do a client-to-server sync, if you wanted to distribute offline copies to people on iPads, phones, laptops, and have them use FileMaker Pro or Go to sync with FileMaker Server. The setup process is identical between the two. The main change is just whatever button you pick here at the beginning. So that's how that works. The second radio button, which I don't often talk about, but it's quite fascinating, is we actually have the capability in Mirrorsync to sync an offline iPad or iPhone, FileMaker Go or Pro offline file directly to a non-FileMaker database. So you could sync 100 iPads to MySQL, for instance, without FileMaker Server at all in the mix. You do need FileMaker Server just for configuring it, because we need to be able to talk to the data API to get a list of all the tables and fields and things. But for the actual synchronization process, FileMaker does not need to be running at all, and you can actually sync directly from FileMaker Pro or Go to any supported database that Mirrorsync works with: Redshift, Salesforce, MySQL, Oracle, Postgres, anything like that. I'm going to focus on this one, syncing multiple FileMaker servers, SQL databases, or web APIs. So this is these first two are client-to-server syncs, and this third one is the server-server sync. I can name it anything I want. I'm going to call it. And I had mentioned earlier that it saves a step if you could name it FMSP. In this case, it won't, because I've already deleted everything in that file. So it wouldn't be any more or less steps no matter what I named it in this case.
Hey, Jesse, I'm going to interrupt just briefly. So I missed this earlier. Jake Sheely, I had to learn how to pronounce that name, asked the question, don't insert script steps require the field to be on the layout?
So the insert field contents does require a field to be on the layout if you're using that script step. I prefer to use the set field script step for most cases. The set field does not require the field to be present on the layout. So it's a good question. It's two different ways to accomplish a very similar thing. There are some cases where you might want to use the insert field, but frankly, I've forgotten them. because I've never needed it, and I used to know what the cases were that you might use it, but I pretty much always use set field because it'll work whether the field is on the layout or not.
Yeah, I think I try to stay away from the inserts unless you really, really, really need to use them, because it's more sensitive to the context. So yeah.
And I'm going to briefly turn off my screen sharing just so I can grab that password.
So I'll need some music here. Start humming. Hey, Disfondo. Figured Disfondo is in. Welcome, Disfondo. And then Michael from Montreal and Brutterman from Arkansas. Welcome. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Bunch of people here. Top Cat's here. Scott Kane's here. Scott Henderson's here. Wow, a whole bunch of people. All right.
So what I've done now is I've told Mirrorsync my hub database. I picked a type over here, and just to reiterate, FileMaker Server, any JDBC database, Microsoft SQL, MySQL, or for my valid hub databases. I've told it the address of Mirrorsync, and I've told it the address of the server. In this case, they happen to be one and the same. Mirrorsync is running on the database server. One thing you'll notice here, well, okay, I'm sorry, I'm getting off on a tangent. Let me finish my first point and then move. If Mirrorsync was not installed on the hub box, then I would pick this radio button. And now I can put in a different database server than Mirrorsync. So I think Mr. Scott asked the question yesterday about should you install Mirrorsync on the same box as server or in a separate box? And I think 95% of the time for most people, same box is fine. But if you've got a very high performance situation and you want to maximize the speed, it is faster to put Mirrorsync on its own box. And in that case, Mirrorsync's address would go here and FileMaker server address would go there. This choice right here, internal external addresses are the same or different. You would pick different if you're running behind network address translation. So you have a private set of IP addresses and then a public set of IP addresses. You would put different, and then you could fill in different addresses for internal and external. Then you fill in your database username, your database password, your FileMaker server username, your FileMaker server password. We need the file, obviously we need the database username to talk to the database, find out what fields and tables it is. We need the FileMaker server admin credentials in order to automatically move the files around, open them, close them, transfer them from hub to spoke, that kind of stuff. Then we choose our database. On this screen, by the way, this will not work. If you're trying this yourself and this comes up empty, it's probably because you haven't enabled the FM REST extended privilege. So if you get to the screen and it's empty, click this thing, it says my database is not in this list, and then we tell you, here's just a screenshot of what it looks like to go to the FM REST thing and add it to your privilege set. Once you do that, that will probably fix it, and then when you choose this, you'll see your database here. And I had previously talked about, oh, no, I hadn't talked about the screen. I forgot. This screen, ordinarily, Mirrorsync doesn't even show us this screen because all of these steps are already done in FileMaker Starting Point Enterprise Edition. I've deleted all of the stuff, so this screen is popping up. Once we've done all of this, the screen will get skipped if we were to edit this configuration. But let's go ahead and do the stuff outlined in here. Step 1, copy the Mirrorsync table from the Mirrorsync support database into this database. When you download Mirrorsync from the store, from 360works, there will be a FileMaker database included in it, and at the root level of that download will be a file called mirrorsync support.fmp12. And that's what it's referring to when it's saying copy and paste that. So I have my own copy of that database, and I will open that up and work from that. So here's the Mirrorsync support database. This is included with your download. And so copy the Mirrorsync table from the Mirrorsync support database into the database. So I'm going to manage databases. I'm going to go to my Mirrorsync table. I'm going to copy it. Now I'm going to come over to starting point. And you would go to your database here and you would paste that. So that's step 1 done. Oh, I remember what I wanted to mention that I kind of got on a tangent before. You'll notice that I'm on my laptop. I am not actually screen sharing to the server. And so this Mirrorsync admin utility you do not have to RDP into the server where it's running. You can download it after the installation in your browser. It'll pop up with a button to download this config client. You can download it to your own computer on either Windows or Mac, and then you can run this and you can do all the configuration on your own computer instead of having to RDP into the server. So you'll see that a green check mark popped up here because I copied and pasted that. So when we're done, we'll have green check marks down next to all these steps. So step 2, copy the Mirrorsync 6 folder from the support database, paste it into your database file. And then we'll do this tomorrow probably. If you're creating an additional configuration for a database that already has Mirrorsync 6 configured, you don't need to copy and paste it. You can just duplicate the Mirrorsync 6 script inside the folder and then rename it. So I'm going to go to my support database, go to my script workspace, get my folder, copy that, come back into starting point, paste it. Okay, so that's done. And when I jump back to here, I should get, oh, and then I need to rename the script. Rename the Mirrorsync 6 script to Mirrorsync 6 FMSP. We made that field editable so you can copy and paste it so you don't make a typo when you're renaming it. So you go to the Mirrorsync 6 script, rename, paste that. And now when I go back to Mirrorsync, I get my green check mark here. The next thing, we get this exclamation point. You can always, anytime you see these, you can put your mouse over it and it'll tell you what's wrong. Sync URL does not match the expected value. Please copy and paste the value exactly. So in your database, edit the Mirrorsync 6 script. Near the top of the script, find this script step, set variable Mirrorsync URL equal to blah, blah, blah. Copy that URL, copy this URL and paste it in to that spot. So that's line 6 on the script right here. Set variable Mirrorsync URL. So I'm just going to change this. And save my change. So now I got my green check mark there. Step 4, copy the Mirrorsync layout from the Mirrorsync support database. Go to the existing Mirrorsync layout, and that's an important part. Go to the existing Mirrorsync layout. Do not create a new layout because when we pasted the Mirrorsync table, FileMaker automatically created a layout for us. So we want to use that existing layout that already exists. Delete everything on it, including the header and the footer, and then paste. You do not have to repeat this step later if you change the sync configuration. So let's go to our Mirrorsync layout. We'll go to layout mode. We will select all, copy, actual layout. We'll jump over to starting point.
Now, I will just say something here in flight here. We've been doing a lot of add-on modules, and so at some point, I think this process would be a lot simpler when Jesse did an add-on module for this, but it's still kind of semi-beta-ishy, even though my engineers are starting to kind of get a handle on it. It just makes things easier, but in this case, you'd still probably do some hand stroking of the code, etc., to make sure it really worked. So.
Yeah, I'm excited about that add-on module thing, and I have tried it, and it's time yet. But
yeah,
it's very promising.
Well, it works really great with things that are not nearly as sophisticated as Mirrorsync. I mean, Mirrorsync is literally like the warp reactor on a starship. It's like, okay.
Yeah, there's a lot to it. There's a lot to it. To put it mildly.
Yeah.
The script is kind of funny if you want to read through 49 pages of FileMaker script. And the script is actually the tip of the iceberg. Most of the code is living on the Mirrorsync application that you install on the server. So we've done that, and now I've got our check mark. So we've completed the 4 steps.
Okay, so if we do have a question from David. Hey, David asked a question. I kind of replied to it, but I'm gonna just give you his question. You can respond to it. David says, being machines and server same LAN. So I guess he's saying they're on the same LAN. Pointing to the external Mirrorsync IP impact on performance, question mark.
So the external IP would be primarily relevant for, I mean, okay, so the performance impact, that's entirely based on your router. The router is what does your network address translation. I don't think you'll notice it. But that's just a hardware thing in the router. Some routers do network address translation faster than others, but I've never used a router that's so slow that I notice the performance difference when using an internal versus external IP address. What you may very well notice is, what you will definitely notice is accessing it over a wide area network versus a local area network. You know, if you have 2 servers in the same physical office or the same Amazon subnet, they will sync a lot faster than our example that we're doing, which is from the west coast of California to Ireland or Mumbai or Sydney or the East Coast.
Yeah.
But
he's talking about a network address translation on the same network is what he's talking about, I guess.
Okay, so there's a feature that you want to look for in your router, and the feature is called hairpin NAT. Hairpin NAT, it's so called because in a hairpin turn, you basically make a quick 180-degree turn.
Yeah.
It's funny, I'm making these hand gestures while I'm talking, and I'm realizing nobody can see my hand gestures.
Yeah, sorry about. Oh, I can help you with that, so I'll make some hand gestures.
Do some hand gestures for me, Richard.
Okay, here we go. Stand by. We're getting ready. Here we go.
Oh, not the hand gestures you would normally use.
Okay.
Do a hairpin curve hand gesture. So the idea there is in routers that support hairpin NAT, they will take an external IP address and instantly convert it back to an internal address, so that from inside the network you can use either an internal or an external IP address.
Yeah.
If your router does not support hairpin NAT, then external addresses either will not work or they will work, but they will be very slow. And maybe that is what the question is about, is maybe you've noticed that that's very slow. If you have noticed that that's very slow, then either just use the internal address when you're inside the network, and then it's not a problem, or look at a different router that supports that hairpin NAT feature, and then that should fix it.
Okay, yeah, perfect. Yeah, I misunderstood. We were talking about network address translation on the same network as opposed to, because as soon as we start connecting, I mean, I misunderstood the question. If you understand that if we go back to do this, I'm going to move to this original diagram so you're not on the screen at the moment, Jesse. So if we go back over this video real quick that I did initially where we were talking about the idea of that you have all these, I can move this other way, but all these servers that are running here, right? Everything is remote. Everything is remote. But you could, and Jesse covered this day one, you could put all these servers in the same data center, yes, and that they just become this like replication backup kind of action that's going on. And they could, and so if one dies, so the whole thing's running fast, but they're in one data center. In our diagram, I have fewer people freaking out about, oh, it's offline for 30 minutes while we restart it. I have bigger problems with people saying this crap is too slow because I'm in Hong Kong and the database is in Washington, and it just takes too long. And so that's why we kind of rigged this demo the way it is, because this is these are the complaints I hear about. I don't hear so much about, because really FileMaker Server generally is pretty reliable. If you get it set up and it's running well, it won't even crash even once a year. When you start having some sort of bug you run into, then you could have a problem, once a week or something, which would be a real bummer. But yeah, so anyway, that was understanding where the server lives relative to each other, I think, is part of this question. For those of you who are more basic, understanding this we're talking about servers together, loving each other on the same rack, in the same server closet, or spread across the globe, literally. So that's kind of the conversation. So
I'll just gloss through these optional steps here.
Okay, hang on, I'm bringing you back. You're back on
So
screen
you've got
now.
This Mirrorsync script now, which we pasted into starting point, and here it is, Mirrorsync 6 FMSP. For a server-to-server sync, you never need to call that script. Mirrorsync will call it for you. But if this was a client-to-server sync, you might want to put a button on a layout somewhere that says sync, and you would just attach it to this script, Mirrorsync 6 FMSP. And then you would tell your users, click that button whenever you want to sync. They could come to here and click this button, but it would probably be more convenient for them if you put it on, one of their layouts. Like you might want to stick a sync button on this.
It's coming.
Gets to it. Yeah. So you might want to stick a sync layout on this button, or maybe on your dashboard would be a good spot. Maybe stick a sync button here. But yeah, just make sure that your button calls this script, Mirrorsync 6, and then whatever the name of the configuration is. Another optional step, if you want Mirrorsync 6 to automatically run a sync the very first time the file is opened, not every time the file is opened, but if you just want to make it so that the very first time they open the file, it will sync it before they do anything, you can have your startup script call the Mirrorsync 6 on first open. That will check and see if the file's been synced before or not. If it hasn't, it'll immediately kick in a sync. And then final thing, which we talked about yesterday, if you want to limit the records so by default, Mirrorsync is going to sync every record. Sometimes that's appropriate and sometimes it's not. If you would like to filter it, which I would recommend if you have a large number of users and a large number of records, if you want to filter it, then take a look at the lower section of that Mirrorsync 6 script. And just in case people were on the call yesterday or forgot where it is, This is the Mirrorsync 6 script. You scroll down, and here's where you get to this customization instructions. So just follow these directions here for limiting which records get synced during the script, or get synced. Yes, get synced.
You're good. You're good. I'm just zooming in and out here as you kind of motor around, because it's kind of hard to read this sometimes on a stream. So.
Okay. So now it's telling you to create the sync layouts. This is the part that I was telling you we kind of cheated. We already added those. That is all of these blank layouts here. So all of these layouts is the part that we would normally do at this part in the process. Like you saw, they're very boring layouts. They can be blank. They just have to be associated with the right table occurrence. The one time you would definitely want to add fields to these layouts is if you wanted to only sync certain fields. If you want to sync all the fields, which is probably what you want for a server-to-server replication, leave them blank. But if you're doing a client-to-server sync and you want a trimmed-down version of it that only syncs, 10 out of your 30 fields, then put those 10 fields on the sync layout, and on a future screen you can select an option to only sync those fields.
That's a good one. All right, good.
So now we get to the Spoke database. The Spoke database is going to be FileMaker Server. It could be any of these, and you'll notice that DynamoDB is in this list. DynamoDB is a really fun, cool, high-performance database that we talked about on a previous day, and it makes a really cool way to create a high-volume, web-based version of your FileMaker database. Of course, MySQL, MS SQL Server, Oracle are all very good at that as well. So in this case, we're syncing to FileMaker Server. I'm going to set it up with our Ireland server. Previous days, we've been syncing with 4 servers. Today, just to make the demo go faster, because we're already at 45 minutes past the hour, I'm only going to sync with 2 servers. So our database server is 1701C, I think it's Ireland. And yeah, I still have. I'm gonna get my clipboard again. So I'm gonna.
Uh-oh, he's gonna go away.
My screen sharing.
Okay, there you go. He's left. Initiate random.
I know Joe Martin is on this call right now, going, "Why doesn't he get a clipboard manager?" Because he's told me so many times to get a clipboard manager.
Yeah, my guys do that too. The problem is when you're busy being the boss, sometimes all the little niceties go by the wayside.
I really should have a clipboard manager. I'm just lazy. I'm too lazy to be efficient.
Too lazy to be efficient. That's great. All right.
So I've configured all the same options except for my spoke server. If I was doing multiple spokes, if I wanted to do like the 4 servers or 5 servers like we were doing it here, this is the screen where I would do that. I'm not going to do it now, but I would click add another spoke, and then I would put the address in of each additional table selection. I talked about this yesterday, so I'm going to skim over pretty quickly. I'm going to pick the option to sync anything that starts with the word sync. And now it's checking all those tables to make sure that they're all valid.
Yeah, hang on. Let's ask the question here. Is a layout needed for each table or each TO? It's just it's a table, right? Not the TO.
It's for each base table.
Base table. That's that word that is inconsistently used in the platform. And she knows this. for the last billion years, it's been that way. Yes, base table. Base table.
Yes. So then an administrator email address is required for any server-to-server syncs. We already talked about this. We already talked about advanced notifications. I think we've covered everything on this screen. And so I'm going to just skim past it.
Well, we haven't just dealt with the conflicts yet. Like if we both edit Alexi at the same time.
Let's do that. I'm going to leave these changes, these settings as they were, but when we get to our live demo, let's do a conflict and see how it works.
Yeah, I'd love to know how that works.
So we discussed this, so I won't go into more detail. I'll just change this to any time so that we can do a server-to-server update whenever we want. And that is the entire configuration. So with a whole lot of talking and explanation involved, I think that took 10 minutes, 15 minutes. We cheated a tiny bit because we already had our sync layout set up. Maybe that would have added another 10 minutes to the process. Yeah. My point is that this is not a laborious, week-long process to set this up. You should be able to add this to your own solution fairly quickly. Well, in fact, we do a thing at DevCon where we tell people, we're not going to do it this year because there is no DevCon this year, but in previous DevCons, we've actually ask people to bring their solution with them, like on a flash drive or a network share, and we'll actually customize. We'll set up Mirrorsync for you on your solution, like between sessions, free of charge at DEF CON.
Yeah, which is always awesome, because then they have to buy it if they want it to work very long.
It does. There actually is a free version of Mirrorsync that does work. So Mirrorsync for free will support one offline client device syncing to server. So you can, everybody in this call who would like to is welcome to download Mirrorsync for free, install it on your FileMaker server, run through the process that I just showed you, and then at the end of that process, you'll be able to download a copy to FileMaker Pro or Go and do a full sync.
All right, so I've got, you're not on the
limited.
So you're not on the screen anymore. I've now gone to your website on my screen, and we're looking for Mirrorsync for free, because I know people love free. Nothing like the smell of free software in the morning. So how do we find this?
So click the buy/upgrade button on the Mirrorsync page.
Buy, upgrade. There we go. I'm going to press that. And then new to Mirrorsync, get licensed. I got 3 options here.
So go to the one that's, I'm going to do it myself because I don't recall offhand what the buttons choices are.
Okay. Oh, I can switch to your screen then. That's fine. I don't have to, but we just, there we go. All right, go ahead. You may proceed. Okay, okay, stop.
Okay.
Stop. That is not what how did you get to that? Go back. Okay.
Oh, sorry. Pricing by upgrade. Okay.
And then so you hit the left one. Yeah, the left one. Okay, good. Because mine did not look like it's right here. I'm like, okay. And
then, just if you want the free version, don't do anything on this page. It will come with one configuration for free, and it'll come with one device for free, $0, and you just proceed to checkout. Where you would pay any money is if you want more than one device. So if you had 5 devices, you would add device, and you would say, I want 4 devices, total of 5, because the first one's free, and they're $80 each for that quantity, and then that's $320 for 5 devices.
Is that annual, or is that one time, or what does that work?
That's a one-time fee, and then we have an optional maintenance plan at the end of the year. You can renew that maintenance for 25% of the purchase price each year.
I highly recommend that, everyone. I mean,
I do too, because sometimes people report a bug and will say, oh, that's fixed in the most recent version, and their maintenance plan has lapsed, and then they need to go buy the maintenance plan to get that bug fixed.
Okay, and can I make another suggestion or a question here? So
yeah.
If I was rolling out like this big servery enterprise thing, and I was actually the guy, pretty technical, but you're going through this, unless I had a written checklist, I could botch it. And so is there a plan where we can like buy the product and then like buy 10 hours of Jesse, not your time, but your team's, like we can get Joe Martin to help us?
Absolutely, and it's probably more like in the 3 to 5 hour range for most solutions to set this up.
Okay, so 3 to 5 hours, and so we could add that to the thing. That would be awesome. So for those of you who are doing really lightweight and you want to play with this, or you're independently brilliant like Alexi and some of the folks here, then you don't need that. But someone like me, if I'm in front of a customer and I don't want to look like a fool, they're like, how come it doesn't work yet? Oh, because I've been trying. So might want to get a couple coaching hours, 360 coaching. There you go, right on. So
yeah, thank you, and thanks for bringing that up. I always forget to mention that.
Yeah.
And so what we're doing today is the server version, and in the server version, you would add, instead of adding devices, you would add configurations. So you would add a configuration, and you would pick FileMaker server to FileMaker server. Okay. All of our choices are on here. You can see here's all the non-FileMaker server choices. And the pricing is right here. So it's $1,600 for FileMaker server to server. It would be $1,800 for a non-FileMaker server to non-FileMaker server, and that's the same in either direction. So that's $1,800. Okay. And then if you want an additional configuration for a server to go, like if you had a second solution, that's an additional $200. If you had, 2 different solutions you wanted to sync instead of 1, it would be an extra $200 for that.
Okay.
So that's where you would do the server-to-server purchase. And we do 30-day free trials of server-to-server. So if anybody wants to give it a shot, and I actually recommend that you don't buy it up front. I would recommend doing the 30-day trial for your benefit and ours, because refunds are much bigger than just making sure that it works right for free and then you buy it.
But I mean, yeah, absolutely. And then once again, make sure you get the main. So Alexi just said, yeah, don't be an idiot. Buy part 2, or part 2, buy the maintenance, right? Buy definitely the maintenance. And unless you're just like the super ninja level person, get a little, and I'd buy the assistance with it, because then you know it's going to rock and kick ass. And here's even a more important thing. If there's a problem, like Joe Martin is your coach there, and he has a problem, and there's some sort of bug, guess what? It'll be pretty much automatically elevated to top level, and it'll get fixed, right? That's I take a lot of pride in how responsive we are to tech support tickets. I think I've talked to a lot of people that are on this channel, and I think most of you have worked with us, and so yeah, we're very responsive to issues that come up. Yeah, I mean, if people want to know, like, why do I talk to Jesse? Why do I do Jesse? And the reason we do Jesse is not because Jesse's perfect, far from it, right? But the issue is that when we point out a bug to him, right, it's like, and he like goes, really? And I go, and it's like a warp drive. And it's like,
it takes kind of personally.
Yeah, it's like, oh, I got to get that fixed right away. And so it's not that there's not a bug. It just means that you know that the guy who really cares about it is going to fix it. And it's him or his team, because it's not just Jesse as one guy. I mean, you got, what, 12, 15 people there, whatever you have. Yeah. All right. Well, there it is. So now
here's what I'm going to do now. So I've finished the configuration, and I'm ready to sync. And so I've got the admin console for Ireland, that's 1701C, open here in the background. If I look at California, California's got the database open and hosted. Ireland does not have that database. But it has Mirrorsync installed on it, and because it has Mirrorsync installed on it, that enables us to do a server-to-server transfer of the file. So that's what I'm going to do right now. I'm going to click the Sync Now button, and before I click it, I'll click it and then I'll talk through it. So I'm going to click Sync Now, and we're going to establish a database connection, and you'll see it creating database copy for Spoke, preparing to move database over network from hub to Spoke to this Spoke 1701C. So it's pausing the database, it's compressing it, it's uploading it. We can see our progress. We can actually see the database pop up in the admin console here. Before long, we're going to see this change to blue as FileMaker Server hosts it, or as Mirrorsync hosts it for us. And then the sync will actually start to run. So now it's blue, that file's hosted, and then before long the sync will actually start to kick in and run like a normal sync. So here's what there we go, setting up sync database.
Well, kind of.
Do this for each table.
I mean, doesn't this have to be on for the automatic thingy to go, or no?
That's if you want it to sync automatically every so often. What I did is I just clicked the Sync Now button.
Okay, so it did an up sync is what it did.
Yes.
Okay. Good.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it won't actually. We recently made a change. Steve Winter actually reported an issue where it kind of creates a problem if you have this auto sync enabled. We won't copy the database over in that case, because what Steve was running into is he was taking his databases down on the Spoke for maintenance, but he had his auto sync set to run every few seconds. So every time he took his database down for maintenance, we would push a new version to his server.
Oh, got it.
So we'll only push the version to the server when you manually click the Sync Now button, not when it's just on auto sync.
Okay, that's one of those moments where they say the road to hell is paved with good intentions. Right?
There you go.
And you end up in sync hell, and it's like, why did I take these offline, and why is it coming behind me and loading them and putting them back in?
Yes.
That's a fun one. That's a fun one. I like that. All right, cool.
So that entire time was 60 seconds, 62 seconds to copy that file over to Ireland, host it, sync it, run it. And now everything after this point is just incremental syncs. So if I click Sync Now, it should be just a few seconds to see that nothing has changed. And so yeah, this is fairly typical for a transatlantic sync with this many tables. Is about 4 seconds. I'll set this to every 5 seconds. I'll turn on the auto sync, and within a few seconds, that'll kick in and it'll start running every 5 seconds. So now we are where we were yesterday and the day before. I just wanted to show everybody the entire process from ground, from the ground floor, from step one, so that you would know how to do it with your own solution. And so this is how you would get it running with your own solution.
Cool. Questions from people. Questions. Make sure you ask your
Let's get to, you mentioned, Richard, you brought up conflict resolution. Why don't we do a conflict right now, so we can see how that works.
Yeah, we can do a conflict. How would we do that?
So why don't you go on your FileMaker and I'll go on my FileMaker.
Okay, so
and I'll be I'm gonna go to Ireland.
Yeah, because I'm not even really sure how I would go locally here. So let me try that. Let me. I'm gonna disconnect from Cloud 2.
So you're going to be 1701A. I'm going to be 1701C.
Okay, stand by. All right, and then we're going to find Alexi. Can we promote her? maybe she could be a VP at Apple. That would be nice. That would be a nice jump for her. Let's see. Let's see. FO. See if I.
Which department?
Well, was she not even in here? She was in here. Oh, you know, she's not in this database because you used the wrong database.
Yeah. I went back to our kind of pre-demo version.
It's been de-Alexied. All right, so what do you want to do? Just edit you? You're the record 5. What do you want to do?
Sure, I'm still opening mine. I'm slow because I'm going from Georgia to Ireland directly with FileMaker connection.
I'm going to get rid of mine.
It's going to take me a little while to catch up to you.
All right, well, you call it.
So if you're looking on my screen right now,
we see yours and mine both, yeah.
Yeah, so you can see that this is Ireland. So I'm going to go to Contacts.
Okay. This is why we need.
This is why
product.
Geographic distribution is so important. You're seeing how bad it is to connect to a server that's far away.
And this is a super fuel efficient database. I mean, big time, right? Almost no calcs, nothing. So at least none that
Richard,
edit you.
This. Change my title. I'm sure you'll come up with something creative. And I will change the website address.
Okay, so
don't commit the record yet. Don't hit commit.
I've locked. It's locked right now. Okay.
Okay. So go ahead and commit.
1, 2, 3, commit. This committed.
And now I'm going to jump over here. And so an update happened. So let's jump back. It didn't pick up the title for me. Did it get it? Oh, you know what? It's because I know why, and I'll explain in just a minute. Let's make one more change.
Okay.
Why don't you change my department, and I will change my email address.
Let's see, department of. I guess we could call it this person.
Don't commit yet.
I'm not committed. I got it rocked. Although I misspelled it. There we go. All right. Okay.
And now go ahead and commit it.
Done.
The console. The reason that it didn't work the first time we did it is because Mirrorsync can't merge changes on something. Sales weasel.
Sorry. You need something creative.
Mirrorsync can't merge changes on a record that it's never seen before. And because we've never changed this record or inserted it, since we just set this up with Mirrorsync for the first time, Mirrorsync has never seen this record before, so it's not able to merge that change. But now, so let's create a new record.
Okay.
Richard, why don't you go ahead and create a new record and fill in whatever you want, and then I'll let you know what pops up for me.
All right, hang on here. I'm trying to. Here we go. Okay, I got Joe going here. Martin, and there we go. So we got that. So I just got his title or this name. Is that all I need? Is that good for now?
Yep.
I'm going to click.
You know what? I'm going to turn off the auto sync just so that we don't have to time it perfectly. That I can just go in and click the sync now button, and we don't have to worry about getting our timing right.
I did Joe Martin, and it did commit, so it should show up. Yeah, he's.
And so you've done that. I'm going to go ahead. Now I don't see it yet, and the reason is because I'm looking at Ireland, and we turned off our auto sync.
Okay.
So I'm going to come back in, and I'm going to sync now.
Run manual.
And that should show up for me manually. Yes. Yeah, there we go. So I can see one insertion here, and there's Joe's record there. And so now Mirrorsync knows about this record because Mirrorsync is what put it here. So now all of our field level merging will work. So I'm going to, I'll change Joe's website, and you change his title.
Okay, title, we're going to make him VP of Snacks. Okay, let me know when.
It's scarily accurate, Joe.
Yeah. Well, we hung out at DevCon. A bunch of my folks are snack people. I think he was too.
Okay, so I haven't run the sync yet. I've changed the website address, and you've changed the title.
Correct.
Now I'm going to run the sync.
Yes.
And what I'm expecting to happen when I run this is that it won't say this one updated or that one updated. It'll say both updated. So let's run the sync and see what happens here.
Okay.
And that's what we got. So I can see your change, and can you see mine?
Yep. Looks beautiful. Yeah.
And what this status is showing us right here is that we did an update to both the hub and the spoke because we rewrote that changed record to both. So what you're seeing now is Mirrorsync's ability to merge changes to different fields in the same record.
Which
so the next question,
which solves most of the problems out there. Where we're going to give Joe the VP, or we both change his phone number on the same day or something, right? Or whatever.
Let's do it. So you change. Now this is going to be in a certain order. So you change his phone number first.
Okay, 555-1212. Okay, got it. And then you want me to commit?
Yes.
Commit. All right. It's
and
committed.
then I will now change his phone number. And I'm going to wait a few seconds because this is where the clock is important. Because our default conflict resolution strategy is the most recent change wins. So I'm going to put that in there. I'm going to wait to commit just to make sure that if the clocks are off by a few seconds, mine is the one that's made last. It doesn't matter which one syncs last. It matters which one is actually modified last. So I've made that change. And now I'm going to run the sync.
It did. You just blew my phone number out. Okay.
Now let's do something else. This time I want to change it first, and then you change it. So let's pick category.
Category.
I'm gonna pick hot prospect.
Okay.
And then why don't you wait at least 10 seconds, and then change it to something else.
And it goes from the time I commit, right? Not when I start editing,
yes.
Right? So yeah, so I can go in here and edit. Of course, it didn't let me put that in there. All right, and commit now.
Okay. Now I'm going to sync again, and I'm expecting your change to take precedence. And I think that these servers are probably all in UTC time. Yep, and it changed for me. It went to engineering.
Yeah.
I think that these change servers are all in UTC time, but even if they, like, if the Ireland server was in Ireland time and the California server was in California time, then it wouldn't matter. Mirrorsync takes that time zone difference into account when calculating which record was modified more recently. And so let me bring up, remember I said I was going to talk about that host modification timestamp way at the beginning of our call?
Yep.
Now is the time to talk about that because I am behind the Ireland server. The Ireland server is 4 hours ahead of my time zone. So if we were just using a regular modification timestamp, and let's pretend that the Ireland server was in Ireland time. Like I said, I think Amazon sets everything to UTC time by default, but just for the sake of the example, let's pretend that it's in Ireland time. So if I were to make my change right now, I would see that the modification timestamp for the change that I just made would be 5:05 p.m. because FileMaker is dumb about time zones. FileMaker doesn't care or know about time zones. It's just like, hey, the change is made at 5:05. And you're like, well, 5:05 where? And FileMaker's like, what do you mean where? It's 5:05. So when Mirrorsync goes, Mirrorsync is going to say, hey, Ireland server, I see that it's 9 o'clock your time, and I just synced with you 10 minutes ago at 8:50 p.m. Show me all your changes since 8:50 p.m. And then FileMaker will say, oh, I've got nothing. I've got this one from somebody changed it at 5:55, but that was hours ago. So then Mirrorsync is going to miss that change.
So you're saying that we need to use the modification timestamp from the host, and ideally the hosts are synced together, right? And with the host, Amazon syncs all the hosts, all these servers using GMT or Zulu time, right?
Yeah.
So, but what if you have servers that your own server, like David Engel decides he's going to have his company set up 5 servers, and they hate Amazon. They're rolling their own boxes. So
yeah, and what matters is whether or not the user who's making the change is or is not in the same time zone as the FileMaker server's time zone. So if the FileMaker server time zone was in California and you make the change there, everything is cool, whether it's on Amazon or not. But if the server is in Atlanta and then you make a change, then if you're not using that host modification timestamp, that change will get skipped.
All right. Okay. Well, I do have a question here from Alexi. So questions are now coming in fast and furious. We just cracked
Yeah,
over.
I've pretty much gotten to the end of my demo. This is a perfect
Well,
time to
yeah,
start.
and we got time. It's not a crisis yet. So Alexi says, how are fields with, quote, unique, quote, validation handled if a change to one record on one server makes it non-unique with a record on the other server?
Makes it non-unique.
I think they would have been, but the comparison data. She's saying that the comparison on one side passes the validation, but when you push it the other side, it doesn't pass anymore. That's a really interesting edge case.
Okay. Yeah, so Mirrorsync is pretty smart about validation failures and record locking failures and things like that. If you have a failure due to a validation, whether it's like a 504 unique validation or a 507 or 509 validation, Mirrorsync, if it's a 504 unique validation and it's on the primary key, that's a special case where basically it seems like we're trying to create a duplicate record. And Mirrorsync will change that from an insert operation to an update operation and update the record instead of creating a duplicate record. If the unique validation is not on the primary key, if it's on some other field, like maybe it's a foreign key, if you want to enforce a one-to-one join relationship, then Mirrorsync will catch that error and it will report it back as a warning. And if you remember how in that email administrator screen there's a pull-down menu to select what kind of emails you get? I would recommend getting errors and warnings, because it will then email the administrator and let the administrator know that record could not be synced. Mirrorsync will not retry that again unless the record is changed again, because it's not going to like magically somehow work the next time we try it.
Well, what about a lock sync? If you say you edit, but then I go back and edit a second time and you try to sync and I'm jammed up Joe Martin's thing, is it going to try that again? Does that come back?
Let's try it. Hang on.
Let's
do that right now.
I can see that being pretty common.
So I'm going to go into Joe Martin's record, and I'm going to change his status to active, and I'm going to set an address for him.
Okay.
But I am not going to commit the record.
Okay.
Now you make a change to Joe's record and do a commit.
And do a commit.
Yes.
Okay. And edit and commit.
All right. Done?
Done.
Okay. So I'm going to sync now. And what I'm expecting to see is a warning here that we couldn't write the record because it's locked in use.
Okay,
and here's what we get. No changes were synced. Update operation for primary key, blah, blah, blah. Could not be written because of an error 301. Record is in use by another user. This operation will be retried on the next sync. So I can keep clicking sync now as many times. And Mirrorsync is smart enough to know the difference between a record lock thing, which it will eventually get, versus a validation thing, which it won't eventually get. So no matter how many times I sync, it's going to keep trying. And after this next one, what I'll do is I'll go ahead and commit the record, and then I'll do it.
Oops, I didn't get a button, so that's fine.
Yeah, I must have clicked the button.
Yeah, that's fine.
I'll jump back to Joe Martin. Now I'll run the sync. And now what should happen is it should be treated as a conflict because we've both modified the same record, and it should be resolved and written. There we go. It's been written to both, and it merged those changes from yours and mine.
Yeah, you got the change right there. So there was a, I'm just going to check here for questions. So there's two questions here. I'm going to do with Mr. Scott's first. Any special caveats for auto enter calcs or lookups in terms of this conversation?
So we do special handling on them, but you shouldn't need to worry about it. Mirrorsync can detect which fields have auto enters and which ones don't, and it orders the sync to make sure that the auto enters happen after the other fields. So let's say, for instance, that you had a foreign key field. So Mirrorsync will always sync foreign keys, and then regular fields, and then auto enter fields, and then calculations. And the reason is because when you set a foreign key, that could very well trigger some field to a default value. We want to make sure that we write that default value after the foreign key has run. If we set the custom value and then set the foreign key, that would re-trigger the lookup and overwrite your custom value. And it's the same thing for auto-entered calculations. We make sure that the record gets written, the order that we write the fields in, we want to write that auto-entered calc last, so that if you have a field A and a field B and C is equal to A plus B, we want to first write A, and let's say it's a 1, and then we'll write B, and that's a 2. Now C will get auto-entered to 3, but if you customize it to 5, then we make sure that we write that field last so that it ends up with a 5 in it, not a 3 in it.
Okay, and then along these lines, Alexi goes, yes, for instance, you're using an old school auto-enter serial number, which is how you and I argued about this for years before this actually happened. So
if you're using serial numbers so there's two ways to use serial numbers. There's using them as a primary key, and then there's using them as a user visible number. Work order number, invoice number, check number, purchase order number, whatever you have. And this could get long, so I'm going to try to give the short answer to this. As far as a primary key, Mirrorsync just does it. You just pick the Mirrorsync managed option, and it just magically works. The only thing to be aware of is that the IDs will be different on both databases. So hopefully you're not using your primary key serial number as double duty as a work order number, because that'll be really confusing when the work order numbers don't match the same numbers on the two different devices. What I would recommend in that case is having a separate primary key and then a separate work order number, and then everything is good and fine.
Yeah, and I'm just going to jump in. So that's what caused all these problems with Starting Point, because part of Starting Point was designed to be simple and a training solution. So we would use the primary as very simple primary key here, cancel that, and it would be visible and the primary key at the same time, right? And so the enterprise version is the one where we've taken the primary key as a UUID, and then we made this user visible field. If you mix and match the primary key and the user visible field, and you're doing Mirrorsync together, what ends up happening is that you end up having, you could have two invoices with the same number. That could be a very likely outcome. And you are being summoned by someone very seriously. You're in high demand.
Yeah, I'm turning on my Do Not Disturb here.
Okay.
I actually have my Do Not Disturb on, but apparently certain people still ring through. So,
okay.
The reason I'm going into here, I want to change this to manual setup, and I want to show you a screen that we've been skipping over in our configuration, which is where you tell Mirrorsync about your primary keys, your foreign keys, your modification timestamps, and importantly, writebacks. Writebacks are, I feel like I shouldn't, I feel like I'll wind up spending 10 minutes and going way over time if I go too deep into writebacks. But the concept behind writebacks is that if you have like a serial number field that you want to be your work order number or purchase order number, put that in your writeback column. And then what that will do is it will make it so that once that record is synced to the hub, Mirrorsync will take the value from the hub for that check number or work order or purchase order number and write it back to the spoke, so that after that record is synced for the first time, the spoke will then match the value that got created on the hub. And explaining exactly how that worked would probably take a little too long.
No, well, that's fine. We have other questions here.
And here's what I wanted to show you, this writeback value. So all of these things, notice that Jonathan created all these are like ID note display, ID contact display, ID document display. So these are serial numbers that are then visible, so that you can say, oh, it's contact number 12345. You pick that as a writeback value, and then Mirrorsync will allow the hub to assign the next number, and it will write that back to the spoke, so that once they're synced, they all match.
Good. All right, so the next questions are kind of somewhat, well, Joe is kind of jumping in here, but I'm going to let you tee off on both of these. So from FM Forums, which I think is Delinsky, he says, what happens when the schema locking, with schema locking and a sync takes place? I mean, I think that, and then also then the next question from I don't know, people I try to pin their names into a call sign, I can't even pronounce it. Will security accounts also be synced? So I think this gets back to the idea that you make a structural change and it just pushes the whole file up. So if you want to recover that again.
So first question on the schema change, if you're making a schema change and Mirrorsync tries to write to that record and it's not able to because you can actually update records while the schema is being modified. You cannot insert records while the schema is being modified. So if Mirrorsync gets a change from the hub and it tries to insert it into the, if Mirrorsync gets a change from the spoke and it tries to insert it into the hub and the schema is being modified, Mirrorsync will treat that just like the record is locked if you're editing it. And it will just keep trying and trying and trying, and eventually it'll get through. So there's no problem with modifying schema. Mirrorsync will catch that and retry. On the second question, Mirrorsync cannot sync accounts. There is no way, there is no facility in FileMaker that I'm aware of to programmatically sync accounts without using a separate tool like the data migration tool or something. There's no way within FileMaker to do that. So we're not able to sync yet things like layout changes, script changes, account changes, value list entries, anything that is modifying the structure of the database. However, I will try to demo tomorrow if I can find time, possibly even Friday. I will try to demo a really cool feature that Mirrorsync has where rather than syncing those changes, because we can't incrementally sync them because we can't modify the spoke file, we do have a very convenient way to simply replace the spoke database with a new copy from the hub.
Yeah.
And so that's how you would accomplish something like that.
It's kind of a brute force method, but it's so simply implemented. And I think you either showed this on Monday a little bit or something, but going through it again is really important. But it's kind of a brute force method, but it's implemented so simply that it's like easy. I will ask the question though, because Claris has got this new serialized XML. It's their new beta version of. Is account information in that serialized XML? Probably not passwords, but
no, the password would not be in there.
Yeah, but what about the account minus the password? I don't.
Yeah, I don't know. I've looked at the DDR quite a bit, and I think that the DDR does have. I think the DDR has the accounts. I'm not positive about that, and I have not studied the new XML format well enough to know the answer.
Yeah, and the thing is, it's not documented. Yes, Dolinsky says accounts are, but he left the so like one of those implied pronouns, but I don't know which pronoun it is. Are.
I think he meant are present in the XML.
On the new XML, as opposed to the old DDR XML. Because remember, there's two XMLs here. There's the old one that base elements that we've had for a long time that base elements will read, for example. And we have, by the way, we have Nick Orr coming next week. For those of you who want to talk about base elements, we have him one day on the his base product and then one day on his free plugin. So we have 2x of Nick Orr, but we have 5x of Jesse. So we're very happy with that. So yeah, so it's a good question where that's at. So
so tomorrow, I'd love to just quickly demonstrate the kind of schema modification feature. I'd like to show how Mirrorsync can automatically detect new layouts and tables, and then we'll just open it up, maybe to just everybody start to log in and make their own changes.
Do we want to make a launcher for them? I guess we should make a launcher and distribute that, right?
Yeah, we'll need to make sure the firewalls are open and. Well, I don't think we need a launcher because, it's the whole point of this with the dynamic DNS is that it should just be a matter of adding a single DNS entry to your host and then having it pop up.
Right, but I mean, some of the people here don't know how to do that. So I'm trying to get them a launcher to that initial location, right?
Okay, yeah.
And we need to walk through that a little bit because it's not clear to me how you jury rig that, right?
Okay, yeah, we'll talk about it.
Because we go to your server, we open this file, and it does this magical in-flight redirect that it was like, I don't even know what you did. It was like amazing. So I'm sure it's like magical.
I'd love to show it off. Yeah, it was a lot of work.
Okay, well, I mean, take a victory lap. And listen, I have no problem with you telling everyone how brilliant you are, because I'm fine with that. Like I said, if I'm the smartest guy in the room, we are all screwed. So I want to be the person in here learning. By the way, Dolinsky just says that on the new, I'm assuming new XML, he says there's a strength meter of the password hash indicating how strong the password is. So you can't tell what the password is, but you can tell based on the length of the hash, I guess, how strong it is. So it'd be like kind of an indicator that you suck as a password person or you provided a really good cryptic password. So
the hash itself, is the hash itself in there?
I doubt it. It's probably, he says, even the strength meter of the password hash. So whatever a strength meter of password hash is. So I'm guessing that's some sort of thing in there. So yeah.
We'll have plenty of time on Friday for questions.
Well, we have 2 more days, right? More questions, but we're doing me in flight, and probably Dolinsky is going to be gone. He'll give up on us because we're so boring. Cool.
Thank you, guys.
All right, well, cool. So tomorrow is bring you and your best friend's mother's dog's birthday party to the party. We want as many people to log on from around the world. So anyone from Australia, you know they love FileMaker. We're going to have a launcher file at the beginning of the hour tomorrow. And we're going to work on, you know, getting it out to everyone so you can log in. We'll make changes, and then as you make changes, we'll be watching them flying across. It'll be very cool. So, yep, great. And then people are saying thank you. Jesse, thank you. A lot of thank yous, Jesse, for doing a great job.
Awesome.
And
Thank you guys for being on. Thanks for taking the time.
All right, we'll catch you tomorrow, 1 o'clock at fmtraining.tv with Jesse Barnum and Richard Carlton. All right, thanks.
See you guys.
Just stepped up the whole way. Calm, cool, collected the quarterback. Great read, good patience. More importantly, great job up front protecting this quarterback to give you a chance. And that's all you can ask for.
Try to rally down 10. 9:25 to go here in the fourth. Short motion by Amendola from the left. Brady takes the shotgun snap, stands in, throws it left for Amendola, reaches up and snacks a high throw and lands inside the 10, rolling to the 9. And slightly behind him, but Danny makes the grab.